Hyvät ystävät, konferenssin osallistujat, järjestäjät ja panelistit. Minulle on aina opetettu, että aina pitää olla varautunut, jotta ei tule yllätetyksi. Se tarkoittaa sitä, että ensinnäkin omassa taloudessa tulee olla puskuria yllättäviä menoja varten. Toisekseen se tarkoittaa sitä, että kannattaa olla varautunut vahinkoihin. Siksi kannattaa olla hyvät vakuutukset. Vaikka täällä on tänään paljon eurooppalaisia ihmisiä, puhun hiukan suomalaisten käyttäytymisestä vakuutuksien kanssa. Suomalaiset eivät halua ottaa kovin paljon riskejä. Se näkyy esimerkiksi siinä, että suomalaiset ovat perinteisesti hyvin varovaisia sijoittajia. Se näkyy myös siinä, että suomalaiset maksavat vakuutuksista paljon, jotta tarvittaessa saavat vakuutuksista paljon rahaa takaisin, jos sattuu vahinko. Tämä siitä huolimatta, että ihmiset saisivat huomattavat alennukset vakuutuksista, mikäli eivät saisi niin suurta turvaa. Näkökulmani on, että suomalaisten käyttäytyminen on äärimmäisen viisasta, mutta ehkä hiukan tylsää. En tiedä, ehkä minä olen vain ihminen, joka haluaa niin suurta jännitystä. Se on minun paheeni, mutta toivottavasti ihan kaikki muut nuoret eivät toimi samoin. Vakuutukset kannattaa ottaa ennen tulipaloa, ennen autokolaria ja ennen vakavaa sairastumista. Tiedän lähipiiristäni muutaman tapauksen, jossa autokolari tulee hyvin kalliiksi, koska vakuutukset eivät olleet viimeisen päälle kunnossa. Vakuutuksista on suuri hyöty mielen rauhalle, mutta silti niidenkin kanssa täytyy olla varovainen. On paljon erilaisia vakuutuksia ja sen takia tietenkin ihmisten kannattaa kilpailuttaa vakuutukset. Sehän on osa markkinataloutta. Vakuutukset ovat kuluttajia varten ja vakuutusyhtiöt täyttävät kuluttajien tarpeen vakuuttaa itsensä pahimmilta kuopilta. Ylipäätään ajattelen, että vakuutukset ovat erityisesti tässä ajassa hyvin tärkeitä. Vaikka inflaatiotaso on pienentynyt, edelleen se on verrattain korkealla tasolla suhteessa viime vuosiin. Elinkustannukset kasvavat, korkotaso saattaa jäädä aiempia vuosia pysyvästi korkeammalle tasolle kuin aiemmin ja työttömyysasteet kasvavat eri puolilla Eurooppaa ja myös globaalimmin. Jo siksi ihmisten olisi syytä yrittää panostaa enemmän riskien hallitsemiseen, muun muassa ottamalla hyvät vakuutukset. Nyt kun täällä on paljon paikalla alan ihmisiä, haluaisin esittää yhden toiveen. Panostakaa siihen, että ihmiset ymmärtävät, kuinka tärkeitä vakuutukset ovat. Luulen, että se onnistuu vain tarinallistamalla. Ihmiset pitävät tarinoista ja haluavat kuulla konkreettisia esimerkkejä, konkreettisia tarinoita ja muita esimerkkejä. Toiveeni myös on, että ottakaa tekoäly vahvasti osaksi vakuutusjärjestelmiä. Tekoälyllä on valtavia mahdollisuuksia esimerkiksi siinä, miten voidaan räätälöidä kuluttajille juuri sopiva paketti. Tekoälyn avulla voitte myös tehdä vakuutuksien ostamisesta helpompaa ja esimerkiksi vahinkoilmoituksien käsittelemisestä yksinkertaisempaa. Samalla voitte saada aikaiseksi kulusäästöjä. Panostakaa myös siihen, että ihmisiä kiinnostaa tulla vakuutusalalle töihin. Vakuutukset ovat hyvin usein kannattavaa bisnestä ja jo siksi ne kiinnostaa, mutta me nuoret haluamme usein aloille, jotka uudistuvat ja kehittyvät. Ottakaa tämä siis tosissanne. Yrittäkää löytää nuoret talentit ja tarjota heille valtavia mahdollisuuksia ja etenkin vastuuta. Kiitos. Toivottavasti mä tänään osasin antaa jotain ajatuksia teille panelisteille ja tästä eteenpäin. Kiitos.
This is extremely impressive, I think. No pressure, but we had a very clear invitation from Patrick, right, to deliver. I would like to start with thanking Patrick for sharing his extremely valuable and enlightening thoughts about insurance, and also delivering some messages to the insurance community and the insurance industry. The first one is invest in making sure people and young people in particular understand how important insurance is. Use concrete examples, stories, and I hope we're going to hear some of these stories today during this session. The second one was make more use of artificial intelligence and new technology. And the third one was, it's probably a bit more difficult message, I think, for our industry, but make your sector a more attractive sector to work in. Adapt to change, be open to change, create opportunities and responsibilities, because this is exactly what young people are looking for. So if you could join me again in thanking Patrick for his contribution. Thank you very much. I would now like to move on in the discussion and start with listening to people we are usually not really hearing in the public discussions, simply because they're usually not being given the floor. And the people I have in mind are young people. And young people are crucial for our future. Young people of today are future consumers. Some of them are already consumers. They're also our future clients. Some of them will end up working in the insurance industry, so they will be future employees in the insurance industry, future colleagues, and potentially also future leaders, CEOs of insurance companies. Some may and will for sure also become supervisors or regulators also in the future. So what I mean is that in one way or another, young people are going to shape our future and the future of our industry. So if there is one asset we must invest in, this is the young people. What I would propose now is that we listen to them and what they have to tell us about insurance.
What comes to mind when you hear the word insurance?
I think as a young person, like most of my friends know what insurance is, especially like travel insurance. But for other types of insurance, it can be quite complicated to like know what you need, like what can we insure, and like what is like normal to insure. Like I don't know if it's like what do people normally have for insurance, and it's kind of hard to find that information online even.
Peace of mind, because I at least know in case of emergencies that my insurance could cover anything or almost everything, and my mind is peaceful.
I think it's complicated. I think of money and finance. I think of security.
What is your personal experience with buying insurance?
So when I moved out of my parents' house, my parents told me that I needed to get some kind of insurance. I wasn't really sure, so I kind of Googled and just went with something. I also had travel insurance a few times when I was traveling like outside of Europe. And I think I have travel insurance in Europe too, but I really am not sure.
So I haven't bought a lot of insurance. I don't have a lot of things that I think should be insured. So I only really have the mandatory insurances, which is health insurance. And my experience of buying it was actually quite easy. It was quite okay.
My personal experience in buying insurance only relates to travel insurance, as I do travel a lot, and I have generally had a good experience purchasing online insurance, and have luckily never had to use it, but I always buy it just to be sure and secure.
What should the insurance industry do to better engage with young people?
I believe definitely more youthful advertisement, more targeting the youth with the advertisement should be very important. Also, I don't think a lot of people understand the importance of insurance while traveling and don't want to get it because they are sure nothing bad will happen to them. But I believe that we should always somehow rely that it's important to have an insurance in case anything happens, as medical costs can often rank up, and it's just something that really should be further explained to the youth.
A lot of these insurance products are designed specifically for older people who maybe already have a very stable income. More products that are designed specifically for young people to help us pull our risk. It's a more unpredictable world every day.
All right, so many messages to reflect on, and I would say so authentic feedback also. When asked about insurance, I heard peace of mind, which is very, I think, positive. I also heard, I'm not sure, or well, it's complicated. I've heard also, and you heard that, right? It's designed for older people. Not taking that personal, but okay. And I also heard there is a need to better explain to young people why insurance is important and why it matters. And this is a moment for me to turn to my panelists, the one coming from the insurance world, the insurance community. If you had to speak to these young people, if you had them right in front of you, Susan, Petra, Juha, how would you convince them that insurance matters, that insurance is important, not only to the others, but also to them? Susan, do you want to start?
Well, I'm happy to start, and thank you for having me. I said to William, so I should reflect the view from the United States, and he said yes, so that is the perspective I'll bring. I'll just begin by saying I appreciate so much how this has been framed, starting with President Frédéric de Courtois' comments about the need for public partnerships to achieve some of these goals, and also the importance of going to where the consumer is and asking them, and you've done that so beautifully. I'm taking all this back to my own team to talk about how we need to roll. But to the question you ask, I would say that the industry is very focused on this because for all obvious reasons, this is where the market is and this is where the opportunities are, and we need to change things in order to communicate. I think listening to Patrick and those consumers, I don't think any of us probably heard anything that surprises us. If I were to characterize the challenge, it's both the why of insurance and then the how do we engage with them? So the why, borrowing data from my colleagues at the Life Insurance Marketing Research Association, the barriers to young people buying insurance, they said it in their own words, is first they think it's too expensive, but when in the next click, when you ask them how much they think it is, they always think it's way more expensive than it is. They say they have other spending priorities, okay, but if it's not that expensive, perhaps this can fit in there too. They don't know how to get started, and they don't even know what they need. Again, we just heard that from the young consumers as it relates to, we have travel insurance, but we're not sure what else is even meaningful. If you think about that from a marketing perspective, those are all things that can be addressed through education and engagement, which really gets us to the how. And I would say that US companies are looking at investments across a whole value chain in order to figure out how to engage, investing in financial education and wellness, investing in digital marketing, both at the corporate and the brand level, investing in accelerated underwriting. So all of those ways will improve how we're able to connect with young people and address the why they need insurance and why it will be valuable to them, give them the peace of mind that at least one of the young respondents said was important.
Superb, thank you, Susan. Petra?
Yeah, picking up on the peace of mind, I love that answer, and I do think that is what insurance does. But I also think that Laurie in the previous panel did a good job, and she said that most of the time consumers don't realize that, but they do realize premiums go up. And so if you're a youngster and you have a lot of other things you want to spend your money on, and then you need to spend your money on insurance, if the first thing you think about is the price and then the value, then I think we already have a problem. So what can you do about that? It goes to education, first of all, and there are different speeds of education currently in Europe, and the way I really realized that is that I have a son who's going through finals. He's 18, he does exams. So he was practicing an exam, and he had an exam with EIOPA in it. I said, I don't believe it. But he did, and he actually needs to learn. He needs to learn about moral hazard, social security, and there was a question, and I brought that to the office because I was very proud. And then many of my colleagues said, well, we don't have that in our schools. So building into a school system. Now, why would you do that as a country? I think it also goes into the fact that in some countries, and we see that in those countries that have a very well-based occupational pension system, that by itself there's an interest in the country to make youngsters understand already now that when they start working, they will be automatically enrolled, and so they need to save for later. So what I'm saying, it's not just saying you need the education, it's also having a need in the country to have a population that understands that. Now, that need, I think, in society and the understanding of the need, I think needs to grow because we have protection gaps, we have NatCat, and not everything can be solved. So again, I think here is an opportunity, and you can, and then I think what you need to really do is think about how they learn. And what I loved was an exercise that I did when I was still working in the Dutch Central Bank, where we did not only have a supervisory board, but we also had a children's board. Yes. And we worked, and it's an initiative of one of the princesses, but you work with a school class, and that school class for a year is your children board. And you can ask them a question, but it has to be a question you have not yourself concluded on, and you will take the advice serious. And the question we asked is, how can we create awareness for the need to start young with saving for your pensions? And they went out and we had interactions about pensions, and then they came back with results, and it was amazing. Most of the results were digital. The proposals they made were apps and games, and they were cruel. I think we maybe are sometimes too gentle, but they just made in the game, you had to make choices, and then they made little movies on how you would end up if you made that choice. And they made movies about themselves as actors under bridges, not having any food. But I mean, we would, as adults, we would not do it. But now it was, I think, 6 to 7 years ago. But and the National Bank of Belgium or the Belgium supervisor was not anywhere near that project. But somehow they heard, because yesterday I was in Brussels in the WikiFin lab of the Belgian supervisor, and they actually have those games where they have school classes in, and they stand in front of a huge iPad, and they need to make decisions. And am I going to put everything in a bank account? Am I going to invest? So, and they have the same, you can do the same for insurance. And I know, again, an example in the Netherlands that the Insurance Association created a game to think about, does this immediately result in an uptake of insurance? I don't know. And here, I do look at the age between 20 to 30. Are they immediately diving into additional savings and a lot of insurance products? Not sure. But by the time they go beyond 30, where you see a bit of a stabilization in maybe a marriage, a family, a working, a career, and they start to think about it, that is where they are going to lean on whatever they learned before. And so I think if you look at those results, we are long-term, so we can do this. I think you need to think about investing now in that, but then also measuring results over a longer period of time.
It's a long-term investment. We're good in that.
Yeah.
Yes. But it's all about raising awareness, raising interest also, and the kids of today will remember a few years later. So that's really important. Thank you, Petra. Juha, also, your experience. You have a young person in front of you. That's not me, obviously. But, let's imagine you have one. How do you convince this person that you're important, that you matter?
Yeah, thank you, William, and hello, everyone. We had very knowledgeable young people on these videos, but I think they also said it very clear and loud that the insurance products are complicated and they are not top of mind. So basically where we need to start from is to make sure that we promote the financial literacy, which is very much the same theme from different corners. And I don't know if you noticed, but the first video was by the winner of the Economy Guru competition in Finland, which is a competition organized by our industry association together with the school system, school people. And I think this is one of the things which I'm really proud of, the industry really promoting the understanding of the financial products and needs and systems for the young people. But how can we do this? I mean, there have to be very many different ways of doing it. So it is clear and it is good that the young people are optimists. So they think they are not having any risks in life, but they conquer the world. At that point, it may be that we need to talk with the kind of image of positive possibilities and the peace of mind, which also was clear there. So we can take this into account in all our promotional activities as well. They are interested in kind of building their own life. So whenever there is the more or less mandatory first home insurance or the truly compulsory traffic insurance, traffic liability insurance, we can utilize these points as training sessions, as kind of information sharing sessions as well, in order to build the kind of the long-term view that what else would be meaningful to do. But we need to do it in their language. We need to do it in the channels where the young people are, perhaps with the influencers in the social media, or whatever is the way of doing it right now, because that develops very quickly. I notice that the social media platforms which I'm used to are completely out of date with my children. So I don't even know where they are, but one thing is for sure, I have not yet found any piece of our advertising that was successfully compete with the cat videos anywhere. So we have a little bit of way to go there, and this starts from ourselves, and I would really recommend that we need to include the young people into planning what is the best way of reaching young people. They understand each other best.
Mm-hmm. May I ask, I know you have a very strong education system here, but are all students as smart as Patrick? Yeah. Because if so, I'm quite intimidated.
I hope they all are.
Yeah. Well, we should all come here and hire the next generation of insurance leaders, I think.
Juha, I really like your proposal, no, to include also young people in that respect. I think that's a very good idea. Now the difficult moment is the reality check. We got a representative of young people in the panel, and Anya, you've been hearing industry people, supervisory authority speaking about how to convince young people. Do you think they did a good job? Are you convinced that insurance matter? What do you think also the expectations of young people are in respect to insurers, if they have any expectations, in fact? Mm-hmm. And what would be your recommendations, tip to the industry and to supervisory authorities, to the insurance community in general, on how to better engage with young people?
Thank you, and thank you for having me here, also Mikael and Frederick. And when David reached out to us, European Youth Parliament, 8 weeks ago, and invited us to speak at this panel, it was really puzzling to us why young people were invited. And I think it tells it all. We were like, we are not experts, we are not interested, we often don't care. It's too complicated and it's boring. So why should a young person come here? And then David was like, that's exactly why we're inviting you, because we want to change that. And I think that's the first answer to your question, is just to invite us. That's also what you said. It's young people have to come and tell the industry what we want. And I think what some of people mentioned also in the previous panels on the climate disasters, of course, it's all interlinked. I don't think young people see that insurance industry, for example, is an important player in the climate change. They care about the climate change, but this link is really not visible to the young people at all. And that's all about this financial education, or that's not financial education, just education, raising awareness, and really taking young people seriously. I think it's very often, like there is a lot of tokenism, of course, when it comes to working with young people, and there is a lot of deciding for us also what do young people need, when do they start caring for the insurance. Of course, young people don't have the money to pay, and of course, it's a correct assumption that you are better statistics and mathematicians than we are. Of course, statistically, we start caring for it when we start a family, but should it be the case, especially when young people have a lot of frustration? It's a generation which is very anxious, especially if we talk of the high school students who experience Corona. The anxiety that this young generation experiences is much higher than probably when you were young, because the future is uncertain. We have a war in European continent. We have so many crises. So how can we win these young people, and how can insurance actually build this trust for them to build the dialogue? And of course, I think these partnerships that also we are now engaged with Insurance Europe, I think, is one of the examples how civil society, and we are youth work, civil society, European Youth Parliament, and we are present all over Europe and do 500 events. We are 16 to 25 years old. So if you manage to raise awareness, even through, and we are one of many networks like this, that's the way forward. And of course, social media. I think it's a very obvious answer, but when I was coming here, I asked a number of my colleagues, and the average team in our team is 27, 28-year-olds, and there is like a term TikToking. So you don't Google anymore, you go to a TikTok and you search insurance, and there was nothing there to learn what they do. So when they were talking about travel insurance, they would really look for things on TikTok these days. And I'm not sure how many of you are producing content with young people in mind on TikTok. And of course, it's, maybe soon, but that's also would be probably a number of ideas and recommendations for the industry, which probably will win the young audience in the future.
So we have Finfluencers in the US, financial influencers, Finfluencers on TikTok, and one very popular one in the US is Vivian Tu. She presents herself as your rich BFF, best friend forever, rich BFF. And she's, to this aging baby boomer, she's incredibly perky. She wants to make finance finance. But to your point, we need to think differently because we are not the target. That this is way too perky for me. I'm not, that lacks credibility. But she has quite a following, and she dishes out lots of information, most of it, relevant to get people into a topic that seems inaccessible to them. I think that's it. But it's just the start. I think the other thing that you said that so resonated with me, because we're just as an association as well as our companies experimenting with how to engage online. It's not one-way communication like advertising, right? It's getting into conversations on things the people care about, like climate change, and then from there that can lead to discussions about products related to your business. So as I'm trying to learn it and push back against my aging brain that is not a digital native, but appreciate what works here. It's that dialogue that's very rich out there, and some of it seems not germane or a little off topic, but you create relationships online, and then that leads to customers. And I think that's something that I know we're exploring in the US and finding ways to do that. Having relationships with content creators. That one company has one with an organization that puts out parenting tips. You're a parent of young children. Well, that's a natural place for you to be. And while you're having conversations about things you care about, that can lead to the value of insurance, right? Just as one example. So it's actually very exciting as a way to deepen relationships and a way to engage with consumers who can become customers, but you do have to suspend sort of disbelief, as you were saying, as we watch our own children do it and figure out the way into the conversation that's just different than we learned or are used to.
you might like them or not, but the influencers are very impressive in a way, because they do manage to get young people on board. They do manage to make them act also. Unfortunately, not always for the best. Right. I mean, we need to be clear about that. But still, I think there are certainly certain things that we can learn from influencers, how they manage to engage and connect with young people, with people in general, because just about a year and a half ago, when we had a discussion, and that's European, on the retail investment strategy around influencers, I thought like, okay, I need to get a bit more familiar with the topic, and I went on TikTok to look around influencers. That was very interesting. 2 hours later, I was watching videos with cats and dogs, and I'm still there. The application is still on my mobile phone, and I still get these videos about cats and dogs. So you see, finance can lead pretty much anywhere. But really, how do they manage to connect so easily with young people? I mean, they obviously speak the same language. I think they're speaking, I would say, easy, simple, short, to the point topics which are really relevant also for the young people. I think also from my own experience, what I've seen on TikTok and the other social media is that influencers, they're actually entertaining very often. Something maybe we can learn from them on our side as insurers. I don't know whether on your side, Juha, you have an opinion on that one.
We have a long way to go there, I have to say. But what the consumers expect from us, and the young consumers especially in the time of digitalization, because we are really between two different kind of forces here. One is what digitalization brings to the picture, which is that the consumer wants speed, easiness, accessibility all the time, but our products are complicated. Then the other part of it is the educational part, and the part of really explaining and making it a kind of a supported, well-functioning process. So I would say that we are in a situation where we need to balance between the expectation of easiness and then the need of clarifying and giving even tailored service, understanding the group of customers, the young people, or also the other parts of the market for that. It's not only the young, but the young, of course, are the very important people for us because they are the future. We have two levels here. We have the kind of the personal expectation level, that how should I be served by the insurance company or the operator, and we have the expectation of what kind of a role the insurance company should play in the society. So we really want to see the insurance operators to be transparent, to be good corporate citizens, to help alleviate or mitigate the climate issue we have. Things which nobody on their own can do, but is a part of the brand and image building of our entire industry. So these two need to be combined, the personal level and the level or the role in society.
All right, thank you very much, Juha. Of course.
And so it's not just about communicating in a way that you reach them and you actually trigger an interest, but then somehow you need to translate that to actual moment of sale, which I think it's travel insurance is one thing, and then maybe you need to decide whether or not you include the winter sports. But if it's saving for later and how you do that, that's more complex. And there's some documents involved as well. Now, I think what often happens, and I think we have those who have kids who try that, they have that experience, then they get into a very complicated procedure. Now, we also talk at other tables on how complicated the procedure would be, but even if you would reduce it, it's not a smooth customer experience anymore. Again, how can the way we communicate with, and they like to communicate, but they also learn, how can we combine that? If my kids want to understand something, they ask Google. they ask YouTube. I mean, I've learned that, I mean, anytime they want to know something, how do I do this? So why not have an influencer or someone explain in a YouTube movie how you fill out the form and do it in an entertaining way? So instead of a chatbot, or except of assuming that if they were educated, they could be able to do it now. And maybe it might even be appealing to some others who also find it difficult to figure it out. So I think the journey is longer than the reach out. And I think the way then that you need to fill it out, if you want to do that in a digital way, could still be personal, because there is someone that is actually taking you through it. And there's lots of those movies currently on YouTube for anything. So why not for also registering for for an insurance?
Reassure me, Petra. You said that when your kids have a question, they Google and look up on Google. But if they have a question on insurance, they would go to you first.
I hope so.
Okay.
They might test you. Go to Google
Over
and
the
then
weekend, reality check.
Mom,
Yes.
Google, Mom. Yeah, I think that's what mine would do.
They actually call me Mama GTP. So far.
You get an answer for everything. Okay, but you spoke also about new technologies, digitalization, and we heard also Patrick speaking about the need for the insurance industry to take on board more than they do now, artificial intelligence, new technologies. Do you think this is something that can help the industry improving the customer journey? And I'm sure that as a supervisory authority, you have some views, pros and cons, do's and don'ts on how to use new technologies, artificial intelligence, for example, in that respect.
Yeah, so I think there's tremendous opportunities, and I much enjoy also going to like insurance innovation conferences and talk to the booths where they have presentations. I think claims handling, particularly on the non-life side, I think there's a lot of opportunity to make not only the back office more efficient, but also the claims handling more efficient. And I think moreover, with the enormous data sets that there are and the ability to analyze that, to really create even better products and to also deal even better with risk. I think it is all there. Now, how should you do that? I think as you've always done, you need to make sure that you understand what you're selling. You're actually saying what you sell and then also really sell that. And it has to deliver a value for money to the consumer. And so what can you look out for here? And some things I noticed that there are many good ideas happening, but I think in the same way that now from other parts of Brussels regulation is coming to insurance, also from other parts of IT innovators, there are tools coming to insurers, but not everyone developing those tools is aware of all the rules that we have. And not because they don't want to, they simply are not aware. And particularly, I think that's more even with the software developers than with data analysts. Data analysts still know that there are biases. But my experience with many of these startups is, and also those who need to think about it because they want to also bring it to insurers and get a good deal, is that if you make them aware of this, the good ones can even sometimes incorporate that in what they develop, and therefore also make sure that the tool they build is, for example, still explainable also to a supervisor. So I think a dialogue with those who develop these tools, I think is essential to help them understand that as an insurer, you're not only selling, but you also need to make sure that part of what you're doing needs to be explainable to a supervisor. But I think that can also be done digitally. Finally, going back on digital bit triggered, it's really also about the service that you then get. And part of what insurers do, maybe at the start, is digital and convenient. I think consumers like that. But I think the moment a consumer is in a situation where they have a damage or a loss, these are moments also where they really appreciate that they do talk to a person. That a person says, oh, I'm so sorry your bicycle got stolen, if thinking about kids, or someone stole your scooter, or oh no, is your cell phone broke? I mean, that's the end of the world. So empathy there, and then helping them. That could still be a person that they have bonded with before in a movie. It could also actually be someone who answers the phone. And I think that's not just for the young, that's also for the older. I think that benefit of insurance, the care that is there, not just in sending a sum of money to a bank account, but listening, helping. And with all the storms and flooding last summer, hotels were arranged, return of vehicles and families were arranged. There is part of insurance that is actually also literally taking care of people. And I think that is where digital, you need to really think how digital you want to make that, because I think that is where you really gain the trust.
Right. There's one thing we need to speak about, I'm afraid, and it's regulation.
Yeah. Well, I was listening and agreeing with everything Petra was saying, but I thought this is where we, as the insurance community, Anya, our apologies, I love how this started big and exciting, and we can all rally around this, but then we always quickly go down into, but wow, the investment required inside companies to overhaul aging technology platforms to be able to deliver on this and to retrain the workforce so that they can deliver on this and create a different customer experience. I mean, just the amount of capital required and the massive change. I know it's underway, and I won't belabor that with a group of industry leaders, but it's part of what makes this a difficult proposition. And then you get to regulation. I love the notion of public-private partnerships, and I think that we have effective ones in the US. I appreciated the comments of the director from Alaska, and I think we are sort of plowing through some of these hard issues, like how can AI be used constructively? If it's used constructively, it'll lower the cost and increase accessibility of the product. But there's lots of questions that get raised. An example of one where we have, I believe, these public-private partnerships, that's the glossy term for it, but there's a lot of tensions that have to, and real issues that have to get worked out. One that is very productive, we believe, is the model guidelines that the NAIC has just approved related to the use of artificial intelligence and underlining. I won't go into the detail on the years that we spent, and I had very smart people inside very sophisticated companies saying it can't be done, but we all stayed at the table and we have a product that allows us to go forward. We're having less progress with regulatory modernization as it relates to e-commerce. And, you know, from the standpoint of the insurance industry coming off the pandemic, we proved it works. We can do e-signatures, we can engage electronically, but there's tremendous concern and, you know, always legitimate. We have to answer to consumers and protect their interests, but the consumer activist groups are in there saying no, no, no. So the public-private partnership has to come from all the stakeholders. I want to take this panel there and say, please answer this. How can we address the interests that those young people have in being financially secure but not knowing how to engage with our industry? And we all believe insurance is core to a family financial security in any form. How can we do that if we don't have regulation that is modernized and keeps pace with what we're trying to accomplish in order to have to deliver products and services in that way? So everything should start up here, and then we all stay at the table, figuratively speaking, until we figure it out, because there really is no other choice.
Yeah. I have the impression sometimes that, you know, speaking about regulation, from the urban experience, it's always very well intended, consumer protection and so on. But when we look at the end results, you know, even if the original objective is consumer protection, we end up with something that sometimes is making things a bit more complex without necessarily adding the value in terms of protection. We've seen that. I have a number of examples, and I'm sure we all around the panel. But how do we manage to change this? How do we manage to listen to what the real people, consumers, need, and to get that integrated also in the regulatory framework, to make sure that at the end of the day we got a framework that is allowing insurers to meet the real needs of people and not something that we assume are the needs of people. I don't know, because of course regulation can have a huge impact on the customer journey in insurance. Petra, on your side, any perspective?
I mean, I think three things, and also things where we can improve. I think first of all, be pragmatic. Be pragmatic. Lots of stories going there, like AI Act, and it's now going to be an impediment. Okay, tell me what in the AI Act is new for insurance or insurance supervisors. Living up to fundamental rights of people, you already have to do that. all the considerations about non-discriminatory document filing, etc. We literally took all the AI Act articles that are relevant for insurance in a table, and in the next column we write what the article is in Solvency II that says that you already have to do that, and we are already supervising that. So I think pragmatism in how we approach the introduction of the AI Act for certain risks that are considered high risks, where we have indicated that we feel we have the tools, I think is a way to deal with sometimes horizontal regulation in a pragmatic way. Second, indeed, really look at what do we really need. We come from a time where we thought that a lot of information for the consumer would help in one way. Well, I think we're coming back on that as well. That was a bit too much information for the consumer. And so in the Solvency II implementation project that we have in EIOPA, one part of the project is that when it comes to the existing regulation, we are currently assessing what can be left out. Now, don't think too easy about that. What I notice is that getting something out is as difficult as getting something in, because we have 27 member states, or in this case, NCAs that need to agree on that, but we have a full agreement that we will make an effort. And we can, if you have seen the changes to the ITS on reporting under Solvency II that was published last year, we realized the reduction of the number of reporting data points from 6,000 to 5,000. Did that end up in less reporting? No, because we did add to that sustainability in cyber reporting. So it's per saldo not helping, but it was a reduction on the Solvency II side. Finally, and I think here this is the industry's role. This is your role. You have to somehow, I think, and where we can help, we will, but the value of insurance, the value of this peace of mind, the fact that there are many ways to organize how you manage risk in a society, but risk pooling and then sharing that risk is one way that's actually maybe a very good way to do it, maybe at good cost, even though it comes at a price. That notion is not out there enough, and so when you have to come in a discussion, be it on AI and all the good reasons to protect consumers, be it right to be forgotten, be it open data, below that is an anxiety about insurers. They use data. Is that good? Insurers have access and analyze it. Do they do that properly? And why do they do it? And they even charge for it. And then what does it bring us? This story is currently not resulting in positive feelings in society. And so here, there is something we need to improve. And I think that is mostly the task of this industry. But I think that if you manage that, and if you manage to explain what you do without using the word mutualization, because I think that's where you already lose half of your audience. But I think, again, Laurie said it, we share the risk, we're in this together. That notion, it's in this room, but I don't think it's out there. And that is where you are already 2-0 behind in a discussion where people want to discuss consumers. Yeah. We have that in mind, we can do that better, but I think the industry here has an important role to play.
Yeah. Juha, please.
Regulation is mentioned. There are certainly many very compelling reasons why we need a lot of regulation in this industry, whether it is consumer protection or many other reasons. But when we talk about the consumers, consumer needs and expectations, so it is truly in the best interest of the consumer to have a well-functioning, efficient market, well-functioning insurance industry. And then it has to be kept in mind what regulation is productive and positive in this way, and when we go beyond the line, so that the Silicon Valley of regulation, which is Brussels to me, really makes value-adding regulation, not something which makes it more complicated for the consumers, more rigid for the industry to develop itself when the environment changes so quickly, when the technology goes forward. And then there are issues which need to be kind of handled by the public sector, which cannot be always taken care of by the industry itself. And industry can take a big burden, but on a level playing field. And there we have a big question, which I think comes close to what is the interest of the consumer.
Very clear. One point I'd like to investigate a bit more, that's financial education, because during the Vox Pops we heard that insurance is complicated, that young people had to Google. Some others have to ask to Petra GPT. This is okay. So it's sometimes a bit confusing, and you're right. Mutualization, you lose not this audience because it's an extremely educated and sophisticated one, and I'm sure we're losing no one, but anywhere else we're losing 95% of the audience when we mention mutualization. And really that brings me to the question of education and financial education that we mentioned before, and I'd like to turn to you, Anya. Do you see the role of financial education as being an important one, and how do you think we can manage with young people?
Of course, it's very important to. So coming from the civil society, my answer is obvious, to work more with the civil society, because Petra gave an example of the school curricula not being adapted. I think it's extremely hard to engage with a formal educational system and to change that. But if you go to the civil society, we can do your work for you. We know how to, we are a youth-led organization by young people, for young people. We can do your job with your expertise for you. So we just need to have trust, input, money, and that's where it starts. And there is a lot of response out there. And of course, we also assume that all the young people are educated or go on, like, at least they have a feeling that we have this educated young crowd, or not just young crowd, as a target in mind. But of course, we also need to reach to all of these young people who are not as privileged. If you talk about Europe, that's also where we are present everywhere. Western society and Eastern society are very different also, with risk-taking versus not risk-taking and availability of these funds and market. And of course, now also the EU set the example with how they bring the young people to the table with lowering the voting age. So it's the first time that 16-year-olds can vote in the European elections. And in Germany, where our office is based, it's plus 5 million young voters, first-time voters, who will participate this year just in Germany as first-timers in the elections. And that's a huge market, but this market most likely knows nothing about insurance and what it gives to them. So, of course, that's also what you said in your first remarks. That's where we start. We really start with educating and raising awareness. And I'm not sure if we need to go as far as adapting these complex systems that you were saying. It could start just with a page on your website. Are you a young consumer? Go here. And it could be very simple tricks to start with, but young people need to know that insurance cares for them. And I think so far, young people know that insurance cares for old people, and they are waiting for young people to become older to get there.
Which is probably pretty much the opposite they should be doing, no? Thinking about insurance early enough to get prepared when you get older.
Well, it's always
Susan.
cheaper the younger you buy it, right? So there is that sort of basic reality of insurance. But just to pick up on your point, certainly we have companies in the US that see financial education as a competitive differential, and they're offering portals and apps that you can use for family financial planning or your personal financial planning, or podcasts or webinars with experts that, they offer this as a value of being a customer. So, and then of course that in turn helps their customers make better decisions financially. Gamification, where if you participate in certain things, you can get discounts or even cash back. That's one company's trying that. Wellness is another very attractive thing for young consumers. So wearables that, really track your healthy behaviors, which again will give you points in the system and other rewards. So these kind of things from just a business standpoint can be turned into tools to engage with consumers and give you a competitive edge, and it's been proven to work out there once you have the technology system and the know how to do it, right?
All right, thank you, Susan. We still have a bit of time for questions, and I've received some questions on the app. For the iPad, it went off battery, so I'm not going to use that one now. That's the risk with new technologies. So here it's a question from the university students on insurance and risk management sciences from Tampere. So they must be here somewhere in the conference room. And they would like to hear your thoughts on how to make insurance and our industry, risk management industry, more interesting for young people to study and work in. In one sentence. You got 1 second each, as you
Mission.
can see.
Can you repeat?
Yeah.
There's how to attract more young people into our industry. Mission. We are a mission-driven industry. We provide financial security to people for life. What better mission? This generation cares about mission, right? So come here and you can help advance that.
Petra, do you want to say something?
Yeah, what I always say is if you like a lot of thank you notes and flowers, don't come work for the supervisor. But if you realize that if you look around yourself on the streets and you see all these people that are doing their daily business and that hardly any one of them really worries about whether or not their pension will pay out, their insurer will pay out, whereas you actually as a student realize that maybe that insurer won't, then I need you to join me, because as supervisors we will make sure that they will, and at the same time these people can just continue with their life as they do.
Right, yes. On my side, my personal experience, and if you don't mind, because I started it in Insurance Europe because of Europe in the name of Insurance Europe. I still love Europe, of course, but the reason why I'm staying so long is because of insurance. Insurance is absolutely everywhere in our society, in our world. Whatever you do, whatever you see, it relates to insurance. Whatever regulation you're working on, there's an insurance angle. So there's a huge diversity, and if there's one thing I have to disagree with, what I heard from Patrick is boring, because in no way I had a boring moment in my career at Insurance Europe and in the insurance world. And I'm pretty sure this is a feeling, a reality that is being shared by many people working in the insurance industry. But someone told me not very long ago that perception is reality, and it's true that the sector is also being perceived as being too complicated, boring. We heard that a number of times. We should, it's like when you feel unwell. You go to the doctor, you get the diagnostic, you feel already better. We know the diagnostic now. What we need to do is to address it, and we had a number of recipes around the table today on how to get better and to connect, to engage with consumers, and especially with young consumers. So thank you very much again for your very active participation, the super lively discussion. Join me please in thanking the panelists. Thank you very much.